SpongeBob generation, being our generation, like takes over control of things, I feel like Leif Erikson Day will probably end up replacing Columbus Day.
Possibly. And that would be the only good social thing SpongeBob's ever done.
That's true. I just wanted to bring this up real quick. Have you listened to this week's video? It's fine if you haven't, but...
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay, it's all about David Lynch, and they have a guest on. He also says, I presume with a straight face, based on like the way he said it and like the reactions of Clay. He said with, I presume, a straight face that Ron Howard is a better director than Steven Spielberg. He said, Spielberg's never made a movie as good as Roxanne. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want. You can say, I like Ron Howard's movies more than Spielberg's movies, and I'll be a little surprised, but I'll be like, that's your opinion. Okay. That's your right to have that opinion.
How do you rationalize that? That's my next question.
But if you say Ron Howard is a better director than Steven Spielberg, like, you're just wrong. Like, that's just patently false.
I think we'll get to problematic filmmakers in the what we've been watching segment.
Oh, goody. I'm so glad that we're diving down this hole again, but welcome back to the Hack Fraud Show.
I'm keeping it contained.
Okay.
I have a sore throat. I can't scream this time.
Okay. That's good to hear, sort of. I hope you feel better, but also I'm glad you can't scream. The Pepsi probably isn't helping, by the way. All right. So, here we are. It's the Hack Fraud Show, together again. This is week 2 of our Summer of International Film, as I guess I'm calling it now.
With more English language film.
Well, yes, but they're very British movies. These are perhaps the most British movies I've ever seen.
They're all about London white trash this week.
Yes, this week we're looking at the work of English director Mike Leigh with the films Naked and Secrets and Lies. I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, it'll be something.
From the string of texts I got on Friday night, I was scared and said, "Fuck this guy."
We deliberately told you don't watch this movie because we knew you would be too brittle for it.
I don't think, Reed, your fragile soul could have handled Mike Leigh's Naked, but that's coming up in the next hour. We've got a lot of other things to talk about first. So guys, first, do we want to address the movie news of the week? Because this week has been a little bit crazy.
Has it? I haven't checked.
Oh, haven't you? Well, Daniel Day-Lewis announced that he was retiring from acting.
Yeah, I did see that.
After Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread comes out in December, that will be his final film, allegedly.
Both sad, but also Paul Thomas Anderson is a good note to go out on.
I think so. I certainly hope so. And I
mean, part of me thinks he's going to pull a Miyazaki and then come back after some time.
That's certainly possible.
Oh, well, okay, I'll come back. Because he's relatively, he's in his 60s, isn't he?
I think so, yeah. He's in his 60s. He's a very private guy. He spent 10 years out in the woods making shoes one time. So, and
he's hard into method acting.
Yeah. And yeah, you imagine with his technique, the amount of psychological and physical stress he must go through for every role, you can only do that for so long.
It's self-imposed, it sounds like.
It definitely is, but, again, you can only do that for so long. So I think he's probably going to be a slightly happier person.
It's a sad day, but not an ununderstandable day.
Yes. And then also, Phil Lord and Chris Miller departed the untitled Young Han Solo movie.
My reaction... Good, they now have time to do something better.
That's probably true. God, it's all over. Star Wars is done. It's just I'm gonna see Episode 8, and that'll be it.
Colin Trevorrow is making Episode 9. I think everyone's pretty much going. Ooh.
This has been a fairly good year for blockbusters so far, and Thor Ragnarok also looks like it's gonna be pretty good. But
yeah.
I'm sorry. Disney, you cannot just keep swapping out your directors in the middle of the river to try and cobble something together. Rogue One was awful, and I have no desire to see another cobbled together mishmash Star Wars anthology film. I'll see episode 8 because I'm invested, and I hope Ryan Johnson will do good things. But after that, it's going to be very tricky waters going forward.
I think everyone's just done with these sort of, oh, look, another blockbuster that's oddly incompetently made.
See, but with that, I have a big fear, and let me tell you a story. So I know this one person from college who has confessed to seeing Rogue One 6 times.
I don't know.
When I last saw this person, went to go see it for a 7th.
I don't know how anyone could possibly sit through that movie 6 times. I don't know.
Are they okay? Are they going through something? Do they have like an emotional attachment to that movie that is beyond any idea of goodness in cinema?
I don't know.
Because that's the only reason I would ever watch a movie 6 times within like half a year.
See, and that may be a problem with like general movie-going population, especially in one of the world's biggest markets, is that you will get strange people like that.
Yeah.
And
I think more than ever, I think Disney's just proving they have us by the balls, and they kind of can just do whatever they like.
Disney,
and because it has Star Wars on it,
Disney
people are going to get endless amounts of.
They are really tugging on everyone's dangly bits. So
Disney is running a factory, and I have no desire to take the next tour of that factory. So,
yeah.
Well, especially because you won't see the best part of the factory, and it's the Scrooge McDuck vault of money.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no, it's there. It's there.
It's there for sure.
It's only getting bigger.
Don't have to have a second one.
Because, even if there's, like, the same sort of, like, media drama circus around episode 9, it's still going to make, like, a shit zillion dollars.
Rogue One made so much money, and everyone seemed to like it, and I don't know why. But that's all. Look, it's done. It's done. And A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are both perfect movies. We that's all we have. That's all we're ever going to get. I've accepted this. I've come to terms with it. Okay.
That's good. So this is catharsis for you, yeah.
I think I've reached a point. As I sit here in my Star Wars T-shirt that my parents bought for me at Walt Disney World. So that's where I'm at.
I think we're just increasingly on like a separate wavelength with blockbuster movies, not just with like general audiences. We've been like that for a while, but we're also just on a different wavelength than most of the critical intelligentsia on these blockbusters. Like,
which is so
everyone
strange.
seemed to love Wonder Woman for some reason.
I don't know why.
And like the same thing with like all the Marvel stuff, and like I just don't know anymore. I think we're just increasingly in our own bubble with blockbusters. I think I can't trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore. It's been like that for a year.
Like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the best Marvel movie in, like, 3 years. It's also the lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes in, like, 3 years.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know.
Except for, like,
I don't
Ant-Man.
know.
I
think maybe we just go into these things with, like, not only just different expectations, but different ideas of, like, what we want. Do people just want, like, the most pristine factory version of things?
I guess. That's the only possible explanation I could come up with.
Yeah.
You want to talk about what we've been watching?
Let's talk about what we've been watching.
Okay. Tyler,
Yes.
what have you been watching?
Well, okay, so I didn't watch a lot of movies this week because, as I say, I was focused on finishing season 2 of The Wire, which I did. But I did rewatch a few things.
Okay.
I rewatched the Coen Brothers' Miller's Crossing,
Ooh.
which is such an underappreciated gem. That movie is quite excellent. It is.
I haven't seen Miller's Crossing.
It is one that people seem to overlook. It's been kind of forgotten, and that to me is a tragedy because this movie is pretty incredible. It's really the Coens at the top of their game. The script is super tight while also being very complicated, but they nailed it down. Great performances. The great John Polito plays a supporting role as this Italian gangster. He's just fantastic. You got your Albert Finney.
There's in a Coen Brothers movie. You sold me.
Yes, although the main focus is on the Irish Mafia, actually. But
Ooh,
it's
more Catholics.
it's an excellent movie. It's superb. I'm so depressed that it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves, but that's Miller's Crossing. And let's see, I also rewatched the other two Richard Linklater Before movies, Before Sunrise and Before Midnight.
Was that part of a Naked related cleanse, or just
no? It was earlier in the week. I was looking for movies to put on in the background while I was writing, and those seemed like good movies to have on. And they were, and I rewatched them both. I'd rewatched Before Sunset about a month ago. That movie, I think, is perfect. Neither of these movies are quite as perfect, but they are both just excellent movies. And, I don't think anyone's quite mastered the art of a movie that's like all dialogue and conversation the way that Linklater and Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy have. So I'm not sure how much you would like these movies, John, but at least they've got beautiful European scenery, so I think you would be into that at least.
These movies sound interesting, and half of what I love. So I'm not against the dialogue-heavy movie. That's something I'm Mr. Rip all dialogue out and just have, visuals, but I can admire great fucking dialogue and a master of the conversation scene.
It's just, this trilogy is such an interesting experiment with time because, they shot each of them 9 years after the previous one, so the characters seem to age in real time, and you see the different place they're at in their lives and their relationship in each movie, and it's so fascinating, and you can tell the actors just have such a deep connection to these characters, and to the point that the actors co-wrote the screenplay with Linklater for the second and the third movie. So they're just utterly fascinating movies. So
does Linklater do a lot of improvisation, or is it all scripted?
I'm not completely sure. I feel like they probably, for these movies, they probably would discuss and talk and kind of improvise, and then they would work that into the script. I'm not sure how much improvisation there actually was on set. I'm not completely sure about that.
Interesting.
But that's that. And that actually leads into Mike Leigh in an interesting way, but we'll come back to that. And then, yes, as I say, I finished season 2 of The Wire, and I may have been a little blunt in my assessment last week. It has a build to it, and it gets much better as it goes along. It
transcends beyond Discount Sopranos, as you called it.
Yes, well, the first 2 episodes just felt so, trying to be The Sopranos for no reason, and I was not into that. As it goes on, it gets better. They bring in more kind of threads. They get the team from season 1 back together, and that's very exciting because they're just such a great thing to watch. You have some interesting stuff with the drug business that they keep following. There are some threads that do still feel out of place and are kind of stupid, but they didn't bother me quite as much. I actually got kind of invested in the longshoremen as the season went along. There are a couple characters that are just that just felt so just out of place and irritating, but overall, it's a very good season of television. It's The Wire. It's better than most TV, even if this was a little below the standard they set in season 1. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's very. I feel like as the show continues to add new dimensions and aspects that it's exploring, I think it will continue to get better. So I'm looking forward to it.
I would say I'm going to go watch this show, but I've already just started Breaking Bad. So
watch Breaking Bad first.
Okay.
More things happen in Breaking Bad. I shouldn't say that. A lot of stuff happens in The Wire. I just think that The Wire is extremely...
Breaking Bad is more tied to our collective culture than The Wire.
And it's
also more tied to people we know, people in this...
Yes.
Podcast.
Well, Breaking Bad is my favorite show, and I've been trying to get John to watch it for ages, so I would say watch that first.
It's not his failure that I haven't watched it, it's mine.
But you say you did watch part of it, but unless Reed wants to talk about Bottle Rocket first.
Oh, Oh, the $8.01 movie.
Yes.
Okay, so some background, I guess. Okay, so last year, at a bookstore Tyler worked at, where
Yes.
we won't disclose names,
No.
there was a sale for Criterion movies, and I bought Bottle Rocket for a steal of $19.34. That's a steal. But for the longest time, I didn't watch it, and then I opened it, and then said, "Hey, who wants a movie?" And then they said, "It's fucking open. Get out." And so they offered the price of $8, and I said, "What about $8.01?" They said, "Fuck you, but that's okay." So, and time came where I sat my parents down and said, "Do you want to try this movie? It's only 91 minutes." And they said, "Sure." And then we went. Okay.
So this is Bottle Rocket. This is Wes Anderson's debut feature film. I think we talked about it a little bit on the episode where we talked about Life Aquatic.
Yes.
But
This is
Reed has
the
finally
episode.
got around to it.
Yes. I covered my ears on that episode, so I didn't know what was going on until I read the back.
Oh.
And let me just say, James Caan is underused.
Yeah, I'll agree. I agree with that.
And actually, for as much as like I don't really like Rushmore was the better Andersonian movie.
Yeah.
Well, Rushmore just has so much more going on every single level than Bottle Rocket. Bottle Rocket is a heist movie built around showing off this guy's new style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we like that style, so we like Bottle Rocket.
That's true. I don't know. There were some parts in the beginning where Owen Wilson's character was mumbling so much. I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? like Jesus Christ, what are you saying? Like Wes Anderson, what are you doing? Of course, again, this was his first feature-length movie, so
Yeah.
and he would learn a great deal. Not sharp dialogue. To me, this is probably for me being a curator of the more recent movies. Seeing this is like, who directed? He directed this? Really? Really?
I don't know.
I mean, there were a couple of shots where it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely Wes Anderson. Based on
Well, I mean, it has
his
Wes
movie.
Anderson all over it in a stylistic sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the thematic richness that we're used to.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know. It kind of has, like, not unlike a movie we made. It kind of has, like, hey, buddies, I got a camera and some money. You just want to hang out in some cool locations and shoot a movie? And that's kind of lovely to me.
It definitely feels like a first feature, and
Yeah.
It
And
does.
not in a pejorative sense.
not in a pejorative sense. No, you can feel him like feeling out his style, feeling out cinema and his techniques. You definitely see the seeds of his style and his thoughtfulness that will come to full fruition. It's odd, like the jump between this and Rushmore is kind of extraordinary because Rushmore just kind of
Yeah.
explodes like a full like flowering of his kind of unique vision.
Yeah,
and-
Rushmore is far more a piece with something like Tenenbaums or something.
The jump from Rushmore to Tenenbaums, I would argue, is much smaller than the jump from Bottle Rocket to
Yes.
Rushmore.
Although we do get a good sense of his quirks, especially towards the end when Mr. Henry steals all of Bob's stuff, packs it into a van, and then skedaddles.
Yeah.
I don't. We'd be harder on this movie if Wes Anderson evolved less as a filmmaker than he did.
Yeah.
But just as it is, you see the seeds of what's to come, and it's lovely and funny and charming in the moment.
Yes. Very
Yes.
true. And hey, his new movie comes out in April of next year, so we've got that to look forward to.
Ooh.
His
Didn't
new-
know there was a planned release date yet.
Yes. Isle of Dogs, the movie is called.
What?
The movie's called Isle of Dogs. And
That feels like a title Reed came up with.
it's another stop motion animated film. And apparently Yoko Ono is in it. So
Ooh.
it's got that going. So that's
God, my voice.
that's Bottle Rocket. Reed, is the movie still for sale? Because I'll still buy it from you.
Yes, but I think the price went up to $8.10.
Ah, God damn it, Reed. Eventually you're going to push this
Make
beyond
it
the pale.
9 cents and you got a deal.
What?
I said,
Make it 9 cents and you got a deal.
$8.09? Okay. I can settle for that.
That'll work.
So that's Bottle Rocket. Okay.
Yep. All right, John, what have you been watching?
Oh boy, what have I been watching? Well, let's start small.
Mm-hmm.
You told me you had an hour before you could start recording. So I said, wait a minute, the pilot to Breaking Bad is an hour long. I'm just going to watch it. Because I need to knock this shit out at some point or someone's going to stick a trident up my ass. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Starring the excellent Bryan Cranston.
Yes.
And a thing I noticed in this episode, the two big main characters are revealed in their underwear. That's just like the thing of how they're started off. I guess like this. That's how you know they're going to be main characters, that they're in their underwear.
I never really thought about that.
Which is wonderful, and that's a wonderful image. But I don't know. The pilot of it concerns. It's kind of like I was surprised how complete this episode felt.
Yeah.
I was expecting something full of setup, but it kind of works as its own contained thing somehow, because the status quo of him as a sort of not unhappy, but kind of ennui-filled chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
And car wash worker.
Yeah.
Then he gets terminal cancer, lung cancer.
Right.
He needs some money. He finally gets fed up with his job at the car wash through like a series of scenes involving like his cop brother-in-law.
Yeah.
About busting meth labs and seeing one of his former students. One of those breaks, he says, "I know what I can do. I can sell meth." And like, what results is a show, or at least this pilot, seems to be a smash-up of Alexander Payne in its kind of depiction of ennui-filled middle America.
Mm-hmm.
What a bit of Martin Scorsese and all sort of the meth drug head stuff.
Yeah.
And also some Coen brothers with some classic big crime in small towns.
Yes.
And like the Albuquerque in the show is just so full and unique and wonderful.
It's so incredible. The Breaking Bad's Albuquerque is such a universe unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just love how like sometimes the show just like has you image of Bryan Cranston flicking matches and throwing them into a pool with like lots of like New Mexico bas reliefs in the background. I'm like, that's just a wonderful image. Yeah. Thank you for showing me that. But yeah, it's like I wonder if, like, Bryan Cranston is a miracle.
Yep.
We all know this. I think like everything that has been said about this show, or that needs to be said about this show, has been said. So I'm just here to tell you they're right.
Yeah.
It's all brilliant. It's a lovely world-building exercise with lovely characters. It's stylish as fuck.
Yep.
And I just loved being in this world of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I will return one day, because this was a shitload of fun. And I got to see Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul in their underwear.
Well,
the only thing,
that was fun.
So I have seen this. It's been a couple of years. The only thing I'm a little concerned about with this is I saw this with my parents, and we got to like the second or third episode, and there was side fucking. And yeah.
Hey, my parents love this show. My parents fucking love this show. They can't get enough of it. Like, anytime there's a marathon on, they are there watching it. So.
The same goes for my dad. Not so much my mom, but yeah, my dad and I were both kind of surprised by how fast the pilot moves. Like, they get him into the business like right away. They don't waste any time.
It's a damn good pilot.
It's a damn good pilot.
It's damn good economy of storytelling.
But John, would you believe me if I told you that this pilot is like the show in embryonic form, and everything from its storytelling to its depiction of Albuquerque to its visuals? Because boy howdy, this show just gets crazier. Like, the pilot is like the 20th best episode of Breaking Bad, if that. Like, the show gets so nuts and so incredible, and like later episodes just become just weirdly like dark and violent, like tone poems, and like the cinematography. Like at the beginning of season 2, they like reinvent the visual palette of the show, and it just gets crazier from there. And it's an incredible show. I think you will definitely just sink your teeth into the visuals as it goes on.
You know what? This all sounds right up my wheelhouse. So
yeah, and
I will, as long as my ADHD doesn't kick in and I suddenly stop watching, I will try to keep with it.
The thing about it is, the first season is really good, but after you've seen the rest of the show, like, you never want to watch the first season again. The rest of
it just goes off the rails in season 2.
The rest of it is just so good by comparison. Season 2 of Breaking Bad is one of my favorite television seasons. Maybe one of my favorite things ever made. Likewise for like the first half of season 5. Season 4 is also incredible. So it's so good. It's my favorite show of all time.
And like, you know what? Seeing this pilot, I see why.
Yeah.
But I watched something else.
Yeah.
Something else that's a bit more, I watched The Social Network.
Yes.
Okay. Ooh. Okay.
My favorite movie of all time.
So it still is your favorite movie. That's still...
Yes.
Okay. This film is directed by David Fincher.
Yes.
Written by Aaron Sorkin, both of whom we've talked about extensively on this podcast.
Yes. But I don't think we've ever talked about The Social Network directly, because we've all seen it before.
Yes. Okay. Now, I'm going to start here. What about this movie makes it your favorite movie of all time? I want to start with that.
It's an incredible screenplay. Like, if you just read the screenplay, I read the screenplay for this movie before I saw it, and I was just completely floored. I didn't know movies could be written this way. Aaron Sorkin's style was just such a burst, like, to my 13-year-old mind. I was just like, holy shit. Like,
it blew your fucking mind.
It blew my fucking mind wide open, and you know, for years afterwards, I was like, oh, Aaron Sorkin is like the best screenwriter ever. I have since modulated my opinion on that. I still think the script for this movie is utterly brilliant. I think The West Wing is brilliant. Sorkin has things that he's good at and things that he's not good at. I've definitely come to terms with that. But
I will say this, is that, like, there is no other film with just the pace of dialogue that is in The Social Network. Like, the movie starts and it just fucking whacks you with just two people, just like bang, 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 bang. Like, in the midst of a single second, it seems like we're getting sets up and payoffs.
Yes. This script, yes, and I'm glad you bring that up, because this script is chock full of setups and payoffs and callbacks and setting things up and knocking things down, and it's the level of that is just extraordinary. It's so tight. The economy of storytelling in it is so superb. You get Mark Zuckerberg's entire motivation in one scene. It's so incredible. The filmmaking in it is just brilliant. I think David Fincher tempers Aaron Sorkin brilliantly. You can see in like the behind the scenes stuff, like on the DVD, Fincher like went through the script with Sorkin like with a fine tooth comb to like adjust it and dial back some of Sorkin's Sorkinness, which when it runs wild can be a little bit ruinous, I admit.
Yes.
So they work together to dial that back a little bit. Oddly, like, the script material is maybe the best material Fincher's ever worked with, and it brings out the best in him, I think. The performances are superb. Justin Timberlake in this movie is so entertaining. Jesse Eisenberg, great. Andrew Garfield is doing good work. And it's such a classic story, and yet it fits so well in terms of just breaking down and taking a look at our contemporary culture and, you know, how we got here and what brought us into the modern era. It is perhaps the most clear-eyed look at the internet and social media that we've ever gotten on film, and I just think it's brilliant. I could talk for hours about this movie.
Yes, probably one of my favorite scenes of that movie is actually seen without a dialogue, and this may be Fincher's best work. It is a scene where the Winklevoss twins are at their boat race, and they are racing, and they lose. But as they do it, the camera goes berserk, and in the hall, the Mountain King builds to the point where they just fucking lose.
I will say that is, I think, my favorite Fincher thing of all time, where it suddenly turns into Kubrick, and we just get this virtuoso tilt shift photography of the Winklevi losing to Dutch. And it's just brilliant. I will give you that. Well, oddly enough, I think that this movie also has another scene of my favorite Fincher filmmaking. And I think it's fitting that both of these scenes are a wild departure for him. The scene that goes right before that is the scene where Sean Parker and Mark Zuckerberg are in this club.
Yeah.
And they're shouting over pounding techno music as lights, Technicolor lights are pounding them. And you do just get this first sense of like, oh shit, Zuckerberg's just a kid who has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's just in the palm of this charismatic man.
Yeah.
And everything he wants. And like, I think that's like, wow, this is a screenwriter at the top of his game. This is a filmmaker knowing how to present that. The issue is that beyond that, and will you agree with me on this? Is that David Fincher kind of has one mode, and that mode is ominous but cool. Ominous but cool.
Sure. That describes a good deal of his movies.
Yeah, what you'll get is
Harvard is shot that way, very much so.
Yeah, what you'll get is a lot of like dark lighting, low contrast, heavy lights, like heavy contrast lights coming from the background. It's all yellow. It feels like it's a dungeon. But what we're actually seeing is like a nerdy man write code onto a window.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I guess I come back to that. Like, Aaron Sorkin wrote a script. And he also did the same thing for Steve Jobs. He wrote these scripts,
yes,
which are like men who have created these miraculous pieces of technology.
Yes.
And what his argument is that, like, what has made them miraculous is partially how crass, to quote Mark Kermode, how crass, vulgar, and infantile their roots were.
Yes.
And that's brilliant. That is brilliant. I would give
Can I just say, he's much more clear-eyed about that in The Social Network than he is with Steve Jobs.
Yes. The issue is, I find with that, is that, like, and I think part of, and like, I'm going to get on Aaron Sorkin back, because I don't think he's blameless for, like, my issues with this movie. Is that, like, part of how he does that is, like, he makes all the women objects.
Sure.
Like, part of, like, this movie's plot is that, like, Mark Zuckerberg is a sociopath who treats everyone around him as tools. And, like, he just genuinely does not see people as people. He just, I think the only time that ever happens is with Sean Parker. Mm-hmm. He just sees everyone as tools to his own benefit.
Right.
The issue is that with, like, when you put, like, David Fincher's one note, ominous but cool, over that, all of this subtextual misogyny inside Sorkin's script comes out as actual misogyny. Because you have, like, a bunch of, like, party shots where, like, women are dancing in underwear on tables. Like, the scene where Sean Parker gets arrested is a scene where people snort cocaine off a midriff of a girl. We reveal that Facebook has spread to Stanford by showing Stanford on a girl's underwear. And I'm thinking, and like, and Tyler, I know it's hard to say, like, you're right, it almost works. It almost works because, like, the Fincher style is so inherently hollow that, like, these images of, like, parties and so forth almost seem like the most hollow thing you could ever imagine.
Well, okay. Let me speak up.
I'll go right ahead.
In defense here, I don't want to sound like, a sleazy male fuck. I'm really I don't want to sound like that, and I'm truly trying to work at something here. Um, the, I have realized over the last year or so that a lot of the things that work in this movie kind of work by accident. Like
yes.
the fact that like Sorkin is not great at female characters. I think this is something that's well established.
No, and I'll get to the ending in a little bit.
But his depiction of female characters in this movie, his depiction of women, the way the movie treats women, works quite maybe by accident. I don't know if Sorkin was aware of it with this movie. His track record suggests probably not. But
I think there's like at least like a subconscious awareness.
But it works in this movie because this movie is about people who think they're so cool, who think they're just hot shit, and who can't understand why women aren't just like falling at their feet. Like, and to show that, to have these party scenes this way, it feels like, Mark Zuckerberg is all about like his whole motivation in this movie, and this is definitely like not historically accurate, but it works for the story.
Oh no, like
this works.
What we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg here is like Aaron Sorkin's like vision of Mark Zuckerberg.
See, that's the thing. I don't know. This movie is like not historically accurate at all. That's completely fine. It's telling a story.
I genuinely don't believe that this is the real Mark Zuckerberg.
It's telling a story, and the story completely works. The story, the way they frame the story, Mark Zuckerberg's motivation, he badly wants to like be part of like the elite. He wants to be like in the final clubs. And that montage of the party that you see at the beginning of the movie is like Mark Zuckerberg's idea, this character Mark Zuckerberg's idea of like what he's missing out on by like not being part of these clubs. And it shows you like the Ivy League, the Harvard like mentality of like, how cool they all think they are. It's also very representative of like the mindset of the Winklevoss twins, and like this stuff all represents the mental space of the characters. And I know that like the excuse of like, oh, we're, portraying women this way because it fits with the character, man. For this movie, that argument is actually applicable and I think is true. So
I get that, but like the issue is, I think like Fincher is trying to have his cake and eat it too, because like I think he thinks this shit's cool. I think he believes these things are cool, and they aren't. Like there's the scene where like there's like Caribbean night, in the movie, and like everyone talks about it like it's the most uncool thing ever. But again, that same style of ominous but cool. Yellow lights, harsh contrast, dim lighting. Like, he's trying to make it look cool when it is so obviously the most dorky thing ever. And, like, I don't know how he conceived of that or what he was thinking when he conceived of that. Also, like, the ending of the movie, and this is one of my biggest issues. Like, the ending of the movie seems to, like, seems to give, like, this basis, like, no, Mark, you're not a sociopathic, misogynistic asshat. You're just trying to be one. Really deep down, there's a good person in there. And to quote BoJack Horseman, I don't believe there's a deep down there.
Well, okay.
Like, I don't know. I just think that, like, Aaron Sorkin is just a bit too... And I know, like, this kind of sounds insane by how much of an asshat Mark Zuckerberg is in this movie. But this movie also has the subtext of, like, what makes him a complex character is that he's smart. And I don't think that's what makes him...
I don't think that's true. I think what makes him a complex character is that he, has difficulty with, social situations, and he views people as like a means to an end, and he's much more he's invested in these big ideas of like trying to change the world and that kind of thing.
I don't know. I see like Zuckerberg as an intentionally one note character, but like we tried to give him depth for some reason. We tried to like hinge him as like the center of the universe, Whereas I believe what the movie should be about is like all about like the people he's fucking over along the way. And when the movie is that, I think it's actually really successful. I think like making it the Mark Zuckerberg show. I think it's like this version of Mark Zuckerberg. I think sort of like I think the movie just needs to be just a little bit sharper with like the ideas it's playing well, because like there's a lot of subtext, there's a lot of ideas running around, but like with that ending, with how it's shot, I just don't think it quite knows where to put all its eggs. And I guess like I do think it just needs like one more like structural rewrite and just one more structural reworking, like to really fine point like what we're looking at.
Well, I just don't agree. I just don't. I think, yes, the depiction of women is problematic. Could it have been better? Probably. But I truly do think it works for the story they're telling. I truly do think that they do a great job of like balancing the various subjective like points of view in this movie. I love the way that he treats the Winklevi. I love that scene where they go and talk to the president of Harvard, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, why are you coming to me about this? Like, who are you assholes? Like, I just love that. That scene. The scene where they reveal that Facebook has moved to state. That's a great scene. Come on. That's such a well-written scene. That's such an efficient way of communicating things. It's a great way to introduce the character of Sean Parker to this story. It shows you the world that he lives in.
I know. I think that says a lot about the movie. Is that like we reveal it's an efficient storytelling, but also done via objectifying a woman in the process.
Because that's the way the characters view the world. I know.
Style is substance, Tyler.
I know.
Style is substance. Fincher thinks it's the coolest thing in the world.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. And look, I've tempered myself on Fincher quite a bit. Fight Club is not a good movie. Seven is fine. I still think Zodiac is really good. Gone Girl is also fine, and I've never finished The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But I just think he and Sorkin were just a match made in heaven for this material. The stars all aligned with this movie. It's my favorite movie. I love it. I think it totally works.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
That's all I have to say.
Oh, that's fine. I don't know. I guess it's. I find Fincher one note and infantile, and I guess that's where I'm going to end on that man. And I don't think I ever have to return to this well to come up. I guess like this man angers me in such like a visceral way, and like and I sort of like. I'm finding that this man is only a good director in like the film school definition of the term good director.
Sure.
But like in all the details, I think he just falls to pieces. Like I do think like being a great filmmaker is all about pushing yourself and finding new visions and finding new ways to film things. And like when the Social Network does those things, like the wonderful rowing sequence and the scene with Mark Zuckerberg and Sean Parker in that club, the movie really does turn into the tour de force that you're talking about for me. But beyond that, I think he can't get past ominous and cool, and I think that's disastrous for him.
I perhaps agree with you quite a bit, but what can I say? The guy had one masterpiece in him, and this was it, and yeah.
Tyler, you love what you love. You don't have to apologize for liking the Social Network. The same way I don't have to apologize for hating this man.
Yeah. All right.
But regardless, it's a fascinating movie. A fascinating movie with lots of layers, lots of things I like, lots of things I hate. It all comes down to, I think, a movie that we shall continue to talk about as the years go on. For better and for worse.
All right then.
I shall come to this.
All right, well, is that all?
That's what I have been watching.
All right. Let's talk about some Mike Leigh movies.
Mike Leigh movie. I hope that was magnanimous enough.
It was. I just.
You love what you love, man. Don't give a shit what I think.
This was much more magnanimous and what's the word I'm looking for?
Calm,
graceful and than our last piece regarding Fincher. So that episode, I truly think that was our worst episode because it is just maddening to listen to.
It is, but I still hate that as much as I did then, to be honest. But regardless, I think I have better reasons now. So,
okay. All right.
To Mike Leigh we venture.
All right. So Mike Leigh, British director, started his career in theater and BBC television films, which maybe I'll watch a couple of those in the future. I don't know, but he is known for his trademark style of rehearsal, which is he'll cast the movie first before there's a script, before there's anything. He'll cast the movie. He'll get together with the actors. They will rehearse for weeks and weeks, building the characters backstories, improvising, working out character interactions. From those rehearsals, he will build a script, and that is the script that they will use to shoot the movie. And so it's not like his movies are unscripted, but he uses
There's heavy improvisation as the spine of his scripts.
He builds the script out of improvisation and character interaction and character building exercises, and that's a fascinating process, and that definitely feels like something that would come out of his work in theater. And it produces some very interesting characters and character interactions in these movies.
There is not a single filmmaker like this man.
Yeah.
I've never seen another movie like Naked or Secret and Lies. That's going to be the status quo for this episode.
Yes. So I think we should probably talk about Naked first, because I sense that we both maybe want to get it out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. We're both 20-year-old men.
Yeah. And
I think, like, what I thought coming out of this was that maybe I'm not old enough to see every movie. Maybe I'm still too young for a lot of movies. It was like the scene in, like, The Amazing World of Gumball where, like, they're told Santa Claus isn't real and there's a rainbow effect and they say all the innocence has just left my body.
Okay. And
that was, like, my initial reaction.
All right. So Naked was kind of his first kind of big breakthrough movie. Won the Best Director and Best Actor prizes at Cannes, or Cannes or whatever. David Thewlis stars in a star-making performance as Johnny, a motor-mouthed, like London intellectual who.
Rapist.
Yes.
Look, Orange. Ooh, little hints of that.
He is very smart, very well educated, but also just a hopeless, like, misanthropic and
like abusive person, like feeling of superiority, abusive both like psychologically and physically to people and to the women in his life. And you start the movie with him kind of going back to visit his old girlfriend and her new, like, roommate or flatmate, I suppose. He gets into a sexual relationship with the flatmate and eventually just kind of abandons her, leaves the place to go just wander around London, the seedy underbelly of London. And the scenes of him, I think, wandering around London, I think, are actually quite interesting and profound. I think, like there's, like, the fascinating conversations with him and the security worker.
That is, to me, is the best sequence in the movie. That, like, long scene of him, like, talking to the security guard, prophesying about the end of days from the Book of Revelation. Is just so incredible. That scene is a bravura sequence. It's very oddly funny in a way that the rest of the movie kind of isn't.
Yeah.
That's all very good. I also love that scene of him, like, talking to the Scottish guy who's, like, looking for his female friend or whatever, and that's very interesting and entertaining. I think if this movie had just been him kind of wandering around London, it would have been maybe better. But there's also a subplot of a serial rapist who like invades the home of Johnny's girlfriend, and this character is so cartoonish in the worst way and
Yeah,
so unpleasant to watch. And
I legitimately have no idea what they were thinking.
I don't know why it's in the movie. It has nothing to do with anything. He is a total cartoon.
It feels like he's like just cut into the movie at
Like,
some point. Just
I
randomly.
obviously sexual assault is a real thing and a real problem, has been for decades. I assume people like this probably do exist, and that's horrible. But
Yeah.
the way the movie presents him, he just comes across as so cartoonish that you're almost like, this guy is like not a real person. Like,
No.
and that to me is just a huge mistake. And I truly have no idea why it's done this way. I have no idea why it's in the movie. Like I say, it's so disconnected from everything else.
And like, well, also like the film's depiction of like abusive relationships, I think it's just so problematic.
Yeah.
It's like it just like what you get is just a film full of like where just like all the women are just mentally deranged.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not like a single thread of common sense in any of the women in this movie. They are just all like these like hysteric mental nutbags who are just like at like the whim of Johnny. And that in itself is problematic.
Yeah. But aside from that, I mean, I do think this movie is good. I think there's a lot of, it looks great. Like the way it's shot.
It's shot, it just like, there's like the one scene where like, he's just kind of like walking along and like the two Scots are like yelling at each other and that sort of thing. And there's like this gorgeous like brick industrial wasteland in the background. I'm just thinking like I think that's like the thesis of the movie of like presenting the underbelly of London.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a masterpiece of a shot.
Yeah, just the cinematography is so rich and sumptuous. There's a lot of great just shots. I love the way he shoots close-ups where he's like right on their face and everything is in like such shallow focus. I love that. I think there's some good stuff in this movie. David Thewlis's performance is just firing on all cylinders. He's incredible.
He talks just so fast.
Yeah.
Like, there's such like he's just so drenched in this performance, and it's like he almost just melts into the makeup and into the periphery of this character.
He totally embodies the character. I worry about him sometimes because between this and Anomalisa, he's played just such deeply unhappy people, and I worry about him a little bit. But
in this case, is just a deeply disturbing person.
Yeah. This movie is disturbing. There are very few people I would recommend this movie to. I think it's worth consideration and I think it's worth watching, but man, it is tough to get through.
Just like the depictions of abusive relationships, I think are just so blunt and at times just so cartoonish.
Yeah.
And like it's just really hard to watch, and sometimes you do just think like, what are we getting at here?
Yeah.
What is your thesis, Mike Lee? Because like we've watched dark as shit movies before.
Sure.
Like one of my favorite movies is A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. Yep.
Of all things. But like that movie, it like always has like very pointed messaging in all its scenes. Like it's also like very deeply satirical in its heightened reality. Whereas this is just so low down and dirty.
Well,
and
this removes all the like sci-fi like future trappings of A Clockwork Orange and presents a very contemporary like supposed to be real London, and that is just unnerving and disturbing in
and there's also just seems to be like such a disdain for its own characters. That's like really like I can't think of like there's like Sandra who comes in at the end and it's like, what are you people? What the fuck are you doing? And like that's like the only like shred of any reality that's come into the movie, because like the movie is shot really realistically, but no one talks like a real person.
Sure.
No one acts like a real person. And I think that's like how I come out to like, oddly enough, the people in Clockwork Orange feel more like people than they do in Naked. And I think that's also what makes it just like, from like a pure narrative perspective, just so unnerving and so unsatisfying.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Like I say, I think there's good stuff in this movie. I think there's stuff to dig at. I could watch the sequence of him and the security guard over and over again.
Yeah.
Just
Like some of the shots are just
just
gorgeous.
so rich. The script work in that is just so incredible. The actors are just so great. It is such an unpleasant movie. It's one of the most like nasty and unpleasant things that I've experienced, and you see that like right from the beginning. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
The opening scene is him raping someone and
Yeah.
then running away.
yeah, and
And does this sound like something that could break you, Reed?
Is there a point to that, or is it just to show the underbelly of London? Because it's just to show the underbelly of London. This is too high a price.
Yeah, like I do believe like the abusive relationship stuff is just like wildly misjudged at times.
yeah, that is by far the weakest like part of the movie, and I
And
truly,
I think that's why like I do deeply hate this movie. Like I can admire its like technical its technical wizardry, but like even like some like the intellectual stuff in it, I just think is conspiratorial bullshit.
well, yes,
And I'm not-
it's supposed to be though. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be. I don't think Mike Lee believes in all that stuff about like price
No.
tags being the mark of the beast or anything.
Yeah, well, never do I. But like because it's presented with such like an earnest, realistic camera and such an earnest, realistic lens, you're kind of led to like, am I supposed to sympathize with this man with anything?
Yeah,
So yeah.
it's very strange.
Yeah, like I just genuinely don't know what to make with this movie. All I know is just I felt like I needed to take a bath after I watched it.
Yeah.
And like I'm not saying there's no value in that.
I mean, if a movie could make you bathe, then I suppose that's good for stinky people, I guess.
This is a movie that I mean it's affecting. You don't forget it.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like it, for better and for worse.
I admire substantial parts of this movie.
I do too.
Other parts of it are very striking and very problematic. But I think the stuff in this movie that works is not to be discounted.
No, like I would never like I'm not going to throw this movie out with the bathwater. I'm not going to say like. I mean, I don't know who I'd say should watch it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly worth discussion. Like, well, granted, like every movie is worth discussion and every filmmaker is worth discussion, but this is especially like worth like what about the abusive relationships are so problematic? Like I think like one fascinating thing would be to compare this to A Clockwork Orange and what makes A Clockwork Orange more palatable to us.
Yeah.
And not just on like sci-fi futuristic baubles.
Well, because I think the one like cartoonishly like evil character in that, like Alex, is treated with such a like psychological realism that is not granted to the Jeremy character in this movie, and that to me I think is kind of what the dividing line is.
Yeah, so a fascinating movie. I hate it.
I seriously doubt I'll ever watch this movie again, but
yeah, so.
you know, in a weird way, I'm glad I saw it. So
I'll never see anything like it again.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. I'll give it that.
all right,
But
so that's
we want to
Naked.
talk about Secrets and Lies.
Let's talk about Secrets and Lies, 1996.
A more colorful movie.
More colorful. The Palme d'Or winner for 1996. Kind of a big international sensation for him. Won top prize at Cannes. Nominated for a bunch of Oscars. Secrets and Lies. So this movie follows this kind of a family saga. The Purleys, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So a black optometrist named Hortense discovers that, or she knows that she's adopted, so she tries to track down her birth mother, gets the records, finds out her birth mother is white, contacts her, and this is all intercut with like seeing her birth mother and her family. She's got a brother who's got a wife who can't give birth. Spoiler alert.
Photographer.
He's a professional photographer. His wife like suffers from I think like severe menstrual cramps or something.
I think that's sort of the.
Yeah. this woman, what's her name? Cynthia is Hortense's birth mother. Cynthia's daughter, Roxanne, is just a problem child in every way.
Abusive to her mother and so
Yeah.
on.
And I kind of liked this movie. There's
I do too.
there's a lot going on. It's
Mhm.
very much an ensemble, like, family drama piece, and
Yeah.
I think its depiction of, like, kind of an adopted woman, like, trying to track down her birth family, I think there's something really stirring and fascinating about
Yeah.
that.
And like the scenes of the two interacting at like cafes and so forth is
Mhm.
just like these wonderful little scenes.
Yes.
I don't know, I think like the movie's combination of familial melodrama, but also a sort of arresting hyperrealism
Mhm.
is just like really arresting.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
times.
Yeah,
So yeah, I can't quite imagine another movie that really does that in such an effective way.
yeah, it definitely is like a melodrama. It's a family melodrama, but it also just treats these characters with an incredible amount of compassion and, like, psychological realism, and gets at, like, real issues like adoption and, family dynamics and class struggle. Like, these are all, like,
Yeah.
working class characters. Like, you see when they, like, there's a big, like, sequence of, like, they all get together for like a barbecue, like, for Roxanne's birthday at the end of the movie, and, like, Morris is the photographer character. Timothy Spall is the actor, who is great, by the way.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
I've never seen him outside of the Harry Potter movies, and he is
He's arresting.
he's a great actor. So his wife, her name is Monica. She, like, takes Cynthia and a couple other people, like, on a tour of her, like, house, and the Cynthia's reaction to it is just so interesting.
Oh, these new carpets.
Yeah,
Oh, to match the boiler.
right. She, like, is, like, subtly accusing her of, like, pouring all her energy, like, into the house instead of, like, starting a family. Like, she doesn't know that she can't have kids at this point.
Yeah, so the stuff about like the stuff about not being able to have kids is just fascinating, and it comes to like a really arresting boiling point.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I have a whole lot to say about this movie, because, like, it's very well crafted. Again, looks great. The cinematography is outstanding. But I don't know. For some reason,
No, you continue.
it's just, I don't know. For as much, like, heightened emotions, like, as it has, it just feels kind of, like, low key. Like, not a lot really happens in it.
Yeah.
And this is like a 2-hour, 20-minute movie.
Yeah. I don't know. It's sort of like it's a sort of slice of life movie about sort of these social and cultural underpinnings of London, and that's both fascinating but also kind of boring in just how like low key it is at times.
Yeah, that is true. But the moments of drama, I think, are very well done, and it's a very well crafted, very well cast movie. The performances are all, again, like, just firing on all cylinders.
Oh yeah.
It's very specific. Like, it revels in a very, like, specific situation, which I think is great. I think the story it's telling is so unique and interesting. There are some very interesting, like, moments of wit in it. Also, I love the fact that, like, Roxanne's boyfriend and, like, Maurice's assistant are just kind of there during the barbecue when all this family drama is going down. Like, they'll occasionally, like, cut to reaction shots of them, which I thought was hilarious.
There's also like a pitch black comedy that goes through it.
Yeah. There's a lot of shots of, like, Maurice, like, with his photography customers, which are very amusing.
Wonderful.
I don't know where he found these people who are just so. There's no other way to say it than they're just the funniest looking people you could probably find around London.
I think, like, one of the most fascinating things in the movie is when he's like with the woman with the scar on her face, trying to photograph her. I think that's just like a wonderful little moment.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what we're coming at here. Is like it's a movie full of like wonderful little moments.
Yeah.
But as like a cohesive whole, we don't quite know what to make of it.
It's an interesting enough movie to watch, and there's art, like, transcendent moments in it. You're right. As a whole, it does not quite come together completely well.
But sometimes I don't want like a whole experience. Sometimes I can just admire a movie for like the moments it gives me.
Sure. Yeah.
And
That's not to be
this
discounted.
is a perfect movie for that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of value here. It's very interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on, and definitely worth a watch, I would say. Perhaps Fargo should have won the Palme d'Or, but
Well, yeah, Fargo's a masterpiece, but,
but
this has its moments.
this definitely has its moments. It's definitely worthwhile, and in spite of everything, I think I'm gonna check out some more Mike Leigh movies in the future.
You go ahead and do that. I like Secrets and Lies, so Secrets and Lies.
Yeah.
So it may be. I'm not gonna quite shut this door yet, even though Naked left me severely disturbed.
Yeah.
But regardless.
But he's a very interesting filmmaker. He's got a lot of very interesting things that he is addressing. He made a movie about Gilbert and Sullivan called Topsy Turvy that I'm very interested to check out.
Yeah, I heard of that.
A lot of his movies are just so long, so that may be an impediment. But I'm gonna check some more of his stuff out, I think, and that's on the docket for the future. Maybe not for the podcast. I think it will be an independent exercise for me. But that's that.
You go ahead and update us as you go.
I certainly shall. But
so, kids,
that's Mike
What
Leigh.
do we want to do for next week?
Well, I think it's about time we get to some Kieslowski.
Ooh.
Now, Dr. Reed, you, I remember, said you wanted to do a whole episode just on the Three Colors movies. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now
we can save that.
Okay, well, because I would be very interested to talk about the Three Colors movies. I watched them all this past year and would love to watch them again. But Kieslowski did a couple of other movies that I'm very interested in seeing. We could do 2 Kieslowski episodes. We could just do the Three Colors for now. We could do just the other movies. I don't know.
I want to start with the Three Colors trilogy.
Okay.
Before we dive into the rest of his work.
Okay. So
we just have 2 weeks back to back of Kieslowski, or would we?
I'm not opposed to that.
I would be open to that.
Okay.
I'd be open to that.
Good.
He's a fascinating filmmaker. I think there will be a lot to dig at there. Okay, so can we handle 3 movies this week, boys?
I can try. Well, I've already seen Blue, but at the very least, I can just watch Red and White. Though I'll probably try to rewatch Blue.
Okay. Yes, they're not that long. None of them go over 2 hours. So, yeah, I'm very excited to talk about these movies.
And they're all the French national identity and the flag, and I love that.
Yeah, and they're just fascinating movies. They're masterpieces all. He's such a great filmmaker. We're digging into some great European art house stuff here. I'm very excited.
Yes,
so,
finally.
The Three Colors trilogy, Blue, White, and Red, are coming your way. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Hopefully we'll be much happier next week.
I'm so sorry that my voice just sounds like I swallowed 3 tons of cats. And
that is somewhat accurate, but
yeah.
Recuperate. Goodbye, everyone. We will see you upon the next week.
I think. Oh fuck! Hold on. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Oh, don't apologize. Merely give us an explanation. Then apologize. You can probably hear the gusting wind in the background of mine. It's nice flavor.
Ooh, what's it taste like? Oh wait, Pepsi. Never mind. No question.
That cool, refreshing taste of Pepsi.
The cool, God, I'm a hack
Can we?
No one paid to say that. You are just a fan.
Pepsi has me by the balls. We'll put it that way. I'm going out for a happy hour, John. I'll bring you back something.
Oh, that reminds me, I'm hungry.
Anyway. You just take it in stride at a certain point. Not unlike Secrets and Lies, the new movie by Mike Leigh coming to theaters.
It's not coming to theaters. Well, I remember I listened to the Christmas episode. We were talking about, I was talking about Rogue One, and you were like, you screamed a Star Wars story,
and I nearly broke the microphone.
You blew my eardrum right out of my head with that one. Okay.
I apologize.
In 50 years, I don't think Columbus Day will be a holiday anymore.
It will be in the city of Columbus.
I haven't thought of that. It's possible. It's possible. It's already not a holiday in my fake world, so